All right, so the first thing we're going to do is come down to the dock and choose FL for Flash, and then you get this window that's going to come up. We're not going to use any of the templates. We're just going to create a new project, and these are ActionScript 2 and ActionScript 3. These are different types of project. ActionScript 3 just means that if you create coding within your project, if you're going to make it an interactive project and type in the code that says create a button, and when you click on this button, open this page or make this sound. So that's the language, ActionScript 3. We're not actually going to be doing any ActionScript in here, but we can create a new project that's an ActionScript project. It's fine. We get the interface for Flash that opens up, and we have the toolbar on the left, and then we have a timeline here. This is where the different name layers are going to be. And this is usually called the stage, where we're going to design our artwork. And we've got our properties window open. If that's not open, you're going to want to open it, so you're going to go to Window, Properties. So this is the basic interface. And the first thing we want to do is set our frames per second to 30 frames per second. So it's the same as video. The projects that we save out that are animation projects will play back perfectly in video without creating any problems. The size, it currently says 550 by 400. I want to do this at standard DVD resolution, which with what's called square pixels is actually 720 by 540. So I want to change the size here to 720 by 540. And we're not going to be creating, at this point, animation. I'm just going to show you in this example how to draw with Flash and how the basic interface works. And then we'll do animation in the next movie. So the first thing we need to do is, if we want to draw something here, we need to have a drawing tool, and those are over here. And these, all the drawing tools, they start after this little line here. So these are tools for moving things around and for scaling and sizing and transforming. These are for actually creating artwork, these tools right here. We're going to get to the pen tool a little bit later. It's a little bit more complex. The text tool is simple enough. You click the text tool and you type. You can select and you'll come to the, in properties here, now that we're in the type tool, the properties that it gives us are for the text. So you could change your font and you can change the size of it. You can just click and drag. This is an Adobe interface thing that if you see the little line like that, you can actually just click and drag right in it. Tracking is opening and closing like this. If I had a couple of lines, this is what leading is. I call it leading because in the old days they actually used to put pieces of lead in between to make it wider when they would lay out the type, and they would put all the letters together.
Hooray for all the stuff like that.
Yeah, it's good to know. So, all right, so that's the type tool. We're not gonna do anything with the type tool now. And then the next tool is the pencil, or no, actually the rectangle. You notice down here there are two colors. There's one that's associated with a pencil and one that's associated with a paint bucket. This is called the stroke, and this is called the fill. So if I take a rectangle tool and I drag, it's going to create, you see this around the outline, this is the stroke color, and actually each of these lines is separate. If I double click it, I'm selecting the whole stroke color, and it's showing me that fill and stroke are here. So the stroke is this line. I can make it bigger. I could change the color, so I could go into the color here and change the color. I could also change the color here. If it's selected. If it's selected and I change it here, then it changes. I have to click off of it to see what I have. If it's selected with the stroke, it's actually 4 separate lines. So I have to double click and I can change the color. If I'm not selected and I just change the color here, so I go to the pencil and change the color, then I could take these tools. So let's say I've got these two colors. My paint bucket tool is right here, and I could click with the paint bucket. And this tool is or underneath this, if I click and hold, it's the ink bottle tool. And I could click the stroke and change the ink bottle with the ink bottle. So you have the paint bucket and the ink bottle, which correspond to these. So there's different ways of changing it. I can select and change, or I can use that tool. And I could use other tools here. And so if these horrendous colors are selected, and I drag with the oval, I could do that. If I don't want that outline to be so big, because it's an independent thing, I could make it smaller here. I don't like that color at all. Okay. So I could select these and hit delete to get rid of them. And there's other tools here. There's we're not going to make primitives. I don't want to get into what primitives are now, so we'll just deal with the rectangle and the oval. And the Polystar tool lets you draw polygons, and you could change in the properties the options for the polygon over here. So if I want it to be a 6-sided polygon, or a 6-sided star, actually, you could do a
6-sided polygon. That's not possible.
Well, here's a star.
Oh yeah, sorry.
And if a polygon looks like this.
Yeah, sorry.
Right. So, and star point size. If I make it, see if I make it 0 and it's a star, does it make a? Oh, so if it's 0, it's like that. I don't know what you'd have to get in order to get it to be. 1 is fat like that. So if I'm trying to find like a perfect Magen David, I don't know what to do. It said 0.5 before, and that wasn't exactly it. So I'll try 0.75. Close. Maybe it is 0.7. Oh, I guess there's 6, so maybe it's, I don't know, 0.6. I'm not sure. I've never done it. Looks like more than that. All right, you can play around if you're so inclined. All right, so now I've got all these shapes. I could, if I don't want to get to that just yet. If I choose this tool, the arrow tool, I could click and move things around. Now the weird thing about a shape, if I click in the middle and I move, if I just click and drag, the stroke and the shape are independent of each other, which can be useful for certain things and can be completely aggravating for others. Also with these lines, I could, if I click and select this, I could actually move this out of the way, or I could click and drag this if it gives that, so I could change the shape of something. So it's a little bit weird that way. If I don't want that to happen, if I want to move the whole shape, I have to double click it, and then I can move that shape if it's double click, because that selects both the outside and the inside. Just make this a little different color so you can see. So if I select just one or the other, it moves it. Command Z, double click, I can move it both. If I want to keep them together, I can group them. So I could say modify, where's group? Command G to group it. Then I can't change the color. I'd have to do something else to change the color. Actually, I'd have to double click it to go inside the group. Instead of being in scene 1, I'm inside just this shape now in the group. And then I could change it and go back. I have to double click to go back. So that gets to be a little bit complicated. I'm going to select all and hit delete. So that's the polygon tool, or the rectangle tool, or the oval tool. If you hold shift while you draw it, it constrains the proportions to make it a perfect square, or if I'm on the oval tool, to make it a perfect oval or a perfect circle. So you have to hold shift. That's common in all Adobe products. You've got the pencil tool, which draws with the stroke color. So if I want to draw with green, I take the pencil tool. It's a pencil, and I could draw with that. I could change the size. Now you notice how it pops to a shape like that. Because what's actually happening with these shapes, these are what's called vector-based images. You're not drawing with just the pixels of the screen. Like when you deal with a photograph, you're dealing with the pixels, screen pixels. In this case, you're dealing with these little points. So if I take this tool here, the sub-selection tool, and I select this, you can see that you have these points. And all of these shapes are made up with points like this. This is called a Bezier curve. And a Bezier curve is a mathematically defined shape. You could drag out these little handles that kind of affect the influence of the curve. You're not going to necessarily have to do this, but just want to point out that there's a raster image or a bitmap image, which is dealing with pixels, and then these images which are dealing with math. These are mathematically defined shapes, vector shapes. So this is the sub-select tool that lets you pick the points and drag these points individually. I grabbed all the points at once in that case. So this lets you drag points. This lets you drag the actual object or to just tweak the edges like this. And to select. Command A, delete. The pencil tool, when you draw with the pencil tool, you have different options of drawing with the pencil tool. They should have moved these to properties, but there are options for the pencil tool down here. So I could draw a straighten, in which case when I draw something like this, it'll do its best to straighten it out. Smooth tries to keep it a little bit more smooth, and ink tries to keep it as many points as it can. It still pops to a vector, but there are more points in this shape. So ink is just drawing with more points with the pencil tool, and smooth is drawing with less points, and this eliminates all the points that it can. So it's a good way to draw quick shapes. So that's the pencil tool. Then you have the paintbrush tool. Paintbrush tool, if you use with a stylus, which I have here, and you click on this right here, it will let you use pressure. So when you press lightly, it's thin, and when you press harder, it's thick. And you have the different shape, the different sizes, or shape of the tool, and the size of the tool. A weird thing with this tool, if I'm at 100% view, I'm looking at my entire movie here, or my entire project. If I go to 25% and I click with my paintbrush tool, my circle, I don't know why it smashes it down, but my circle is like this, where if I go all the way to 800 and I click, my shape will be the same size as the cursor. It's always the same size as the cursor. So in this case, it matters what zoom level you're at to create what artwork you want. It's kind of a quirky thing. And we're not going to worry about the other tools for now. For this project, you're only going to need to deal with creating circles with the oval tool, and I want them to be black circles. I guess I could have a white stroke, like a thin white stroke if you wanted to. You won't see the white stroke. I've got a circle there. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to do Command G to group it. And then I'm going to be able to go copy and paste. So I've got a couple of circles. Copy, paste. If you don't want to have that outline around it, if I double click it and I, or when you create the shape, choose for the stroke nothing right here. And then you could create your shape. I want to hold shift when I create the shape. And I want to go like this. And I still want to group it, even if it's only one, because I didn't show you what happens. If I have this and I copy it and I paste another one, if I have this intersect with this, if I click now, they're the same shape. It's a weird thing in Flash. So if I don't want that to happen, I have to first group it. And if it's grouped, then it'll maintain its own reality. So now it doesn't. And actually also, it'll if I have just that shape and I paste another one and I group it, if this is a different color, and I click off and then I do this, it's going to take out chunks of that. Why it does that? It's not a bug. It's supposed to do that. It could be useful for things like be useful for things like making moons. Nice way to make a moon. So one other thing for the project that you need to know for this first project, you need to know that say you've got this shape here, and you want to go to another frame. So this is frame 1. And this little black dot tells me that we have artwork on frame 1. So let's say this is the way that I want this project done. Instead of you creating 8 different little projects and turning them in separate, I want you to just put each, even though we're not doing animation, I want you to put each piece of artwork on a separate frame. So you're going to click on this, and you're going to go Insert, Timeline, Frame, or F5, or not F5. You want to do a new blank keyframe. So it's actually F7. I don't know why it doesn't show you that there, but if I click, I think I have to change my system preferences so I'm able to use, since I'm on a laptop, I need to use them as function keys. So I'm going to click F7, and it gives me a blank frame to draw into. So here's my first frame, here's my second frame. And on my second frame, I'm going to draw whatever the second thing I tell you to draw is. And the third one, I'm going to draw the third thing. And the fourth one. So I just keep clicking F7. And this is actually creating animation, but we're not going to use it as animation in this project. I'm going to, when you're done with it, you go File, Save As, or just Save. And FLA is the extension for Flash. And I'm going to name this project, it's, I would name it Blonder R _ DES design, because that's what I called it. And I'll just put it for now on my desktop. Or actually, you'll probably put it into your folder. So if I have a Roger Blonder folder, and inside there, I would have design. I think it's O2 design or something like that. You could put it in there. So long as you save it where you know you want it to be. And then you're going to turn it in by going down to the transfer volume. You may have to click Student NCJHS. And I'm going to go in here. I'm waiting for it to open still.
Can you turn on the lights?
Yeah, we're going to turn on the lights in just a second. We're going to go into O2 Design. I'm going to get that project. I'm going to go into Transfer Volume, Media Arts. I'm going to be able to see the window. I don't know why it's a little bit slow on the Transfer Volume. MAA, and I'll put a New Assignments folder. So drag your project into the New Assignments folder. And that's it.